last year I went to Kabul, Afghanistan, to go to this work with this organization called the Miraculous Love Kids, a really like phenomenal, just extraordinary institution run by one person named Lanny Cardola, who was a sort of former American rock and roller. He was a member of the band called the Vanilla Fudge. Remember them? That's going a while back. He's played with a number of other bands, worked in the studio work with Guns N' Roses and the Beach Boys and all kinds of groups. So he decided to go to Kabul and find the girl in the magazine photo that was a survivor after a Taliban bombing that had killed several members of her family. And then he went there, found her, and found her remaining family members, and decided that he really wanted to do something to help them. So he came back to the US and he raised $10,000, came back there to buy them a home and stuff and, you know, give them support. But then when he got there, he realized there's so many kids whose parents had been killed by the Taliban, particularly girls who really have no prospects. They're very likely going to be sex trafficked and abused in other ways and married off, and their lives look really grim. So he decided that he would set up a guitar school for girls called the Miraculous Love Kids. I mean, at great risk. Literally what Lanny did was approach girls in parks throughout selling stuff. Say with a translator, say that, would you be interested in a school where you learn English? Because his idea was to teach them English and other life skills. And then he would pay their families, whoever's taking care of them, to let them go to the school. And then he'd get a number of moms to come and be there every day, you know, and sort of like help out and supervise. I mean, he had this whole idea in his mind that he was going to do this. And then he had to find a space to do this in Kabul. And I have to tell you, it's pretty gnarly there. And to find a space to work in, especially as a Westerner, is like, it's no easy task. And then he sort of connected with Raven Ray Resources, which is a paramilitary group that provides security for, you know, for corporate people and anyone who needs it. And they said they provide security for him pro bono, and that they would every day go and pick up the girls in their Humvees. You know, they have these fortified vehicles, and they go around the city with their soldiers, pick up the girls so they'd be safe, bring them to his school so that he could teach them, and then take them home each day. And that Lanny would stay in their compound where I stayed, which is surrounded by blast walls with airlock, with tarps, no drone attacks, with usually 20 soldiers on duty all the time. Throughout the whole complex, they have these steel doors that lock at 6 points. They have a whole K9 division. They have, you know, CCTV everywhere. You know, they have a safe space, safe room. I mean, the place was just amazing. And so we went there with the idea is we'll make a music video with the girls to help promote them. So our plan was to get them into a recording studio. I mean, Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys had made a video with them, but he did it remotely. So we thought, you know, we'll go there and we'll create this. So we got there, and when we arrived, one of the main girls, most important ones, had to run away because her family was going to honor kill her, because she was going to make music videos. It was fine to take money from Lanny while she wasn't getting a lot of exposure, but as soon as she was getting exposure, then all of a sudden she shamed the family. So then she was hiding out. And then finally, I'll make a short, you know, story short. Eventually, Lanny brought her into the recording studio. The Raven Ray group protected her, although they did have an altercation with some of her family members, and one of the soldiers lost an eye, another one broke a wrist. But then there's some other folks that got hurt in that conflict. And then, but we got her in, she recorded, we got a great recording. We're working on post-production for it now. And then Lanny found a home with whom she could live permanently afterwards with the help of the, you know, Afghani government. And while we were there, the Taliban did a truck attack that was literally a little over a kilometer away from us. They killed 30 and wounded over 100 others. And they blew up a truck outside what's called the Green Zone. And the way the earth shook was like nothing I'd ever felt before. Fortunately, they have a basement bar, which is like their bunker. Fortunately, we were down there when it happened. And even when we left to the airport, you know, 2 days later, and an IED went off in the road about maybe a half mile up the street from us. Our driver didn't even flinch. He just went a different direction to the airport. You know, meanwhile, there's like a mushroom cloud in the road. And
so he was so accustomed to.
That's my point.
All right, so that's
so accustomed to it.
That's his reality, his space.
Right.
Whereas we would flip out.
This is everyday life in Kabul. It's bombings regularly, you know, people killed, chaos. It's just madness there. And here's Lanny doing this amazing thing for these girls. He has roughly 50 main girls that come to the school. and he gives them $300 a month to their families, which is what a middle class income is. But now with the U.S. military pulling out of Afghanistan, the prospects for the girls is pretty grim. Like
Yeah.
they're very, like many of which will probably be murdered or trafficked, married off. And Mark and I interviewed them about this prospect while we were there, because at that time Trump was supposedly doing negotiations with the Taliban, which probably is, for all of them, they think it's just about pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
about the opium industry and getting
Yeah.
opium to American pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
But they also talked about how if America pulls out, soldiers pull out, then they're basically like, they enjoyed life for a couple of years with Lanny and the Miraculous Love Kids, and then after that, who knows?